Welcome to Sustainability for Sinners, a non-judgmental, informative and hopefully helpful place you can learn about sustainability. I focus on health, water, food, energy, antibiotics, detoxifying your life and much, much more. If you like what you hear, then go ahead and hit the follow button. Enjoy.
You just did the podcast.
Yeah, we just got it done there. Welcome, Stephanie. So happy for you to join me here. And thanks. And can I get you to introduce yourself?
Sure.
This is Dairy
Hi.
Girl Diaries, by the way.
Dairy Girl Diaries. My name is Stephanie. I am a fifth generation farmer in Petaluma, California, and recently been speaking out about the Point Reyes multi-generational organic small family farms in Point Reyes that have been pushed out of their farms by three major NGOs, and just trying to get the word out about that and hopefully get something moved forward so that we can keep that land agriculture since it's a declining industry.
Wow. Yeah. It's a big issue right now, right? It just came out of nowhere, didn't it? When did it start?
Well, it's been going on for a decade for the Point Reyes
Decade.
farmers. A
Okay.
decade.
Wow.
Yeah, they've been fighting it for a long time. And Kevin
Yeah.
Lunny actually had an oyster farm years ago in 2014, and he was attacked by the same NGOs, and they actually pushed him out. So 2016, there was the first lawsuit filed by the Resource Renewal Institute, Center for Biological Diversity, and the Western Watersheds Project with the Advocates of the West against the Park Service, the Point Reyes National Seashore. But the problem with the
Okay.
lawsuit is that it was targeting the farmers, not the Park Service, and basically created these guidelines and boundaries that would make it really difficult on the farmers to exist. And so
Yeah.
they were forced to participate in the lawsuit, and they fought that for years. And then they finally settled on how to proceed forward from that lawsuit. And then they abided by everything that the NGOs set forth. And then they came back and they said they didn't like how it was working out. So they filed
Really?
another lawsuit. Yeah. And they
Oh,
filed another one in 2022. And then that's the one that really just put the nail in the coffin. And so it's been a decade-long battle for these farmers.
hmm
And then January 9th, they all signed, not all of them, but 12 out of the 14 signed a settlement agreement to basically remove themselves and give up their leases with the Park Service and get off of the property. So we're losing a lot of farms and ranches.
So how many are gone now of the farms there? Or are
I
they
believe
still
there's
there?
a handful left right now.
Yeah.
Most of them have sold their animals and are in the process of moving and finding another place to go.
Yikes.
Yeah, but the few that are left want to continue farming. They want to stay there. They
Yeah,
want to find an alternative if possible.
of course.
Yeah.
And like if they're fifth generation like yourself, like it's your heart, you know? It's the place you grew up in. Yeah. To state the
Yeah.
obvious, my great grandfather grew the forests around the land where my uncle farms, and like it's a part of you. Like it'd be horrendous to leave it.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine it. Um, wow. And so is it a conservation area they're trying to turn it back into, or what's the deal? Why are they
Yeah.
so
So it
adamant?
was farmland original. Well, it depends on how far back you want to go, right? So in the 1800s, right, the farmers came and they
Yeah.
started to farm that land after after it became available and whatnot. And so some of those farmers have been there longer than my family's been at our place. But fifth, sixth, seventh generation around there, right? A couple hundred years worth of
Yeah.
farming. Um, and so what happened was in 1962, the the U.S. government recognized this beautiful land was under threat of developers and becoming hotels and beach-ridden,
hmm
resorts, right? And so they decided they wanted to preserve the Point Reyes National Seashore, or the Point Reyes Seashore. And what they did is they encompassed this entire area. And John F. Kennedy actually signed into effect the Point Reyes Act, which allowed the Department of Interior to come and buy up a lot of that land to preserve it. However,
Mm.
because it encompassed a ton of agriculture and farms, JFK recognized the importance of securing our food system. And so they did, first time ever, something called the pastoral zone. And they wrote into the act to basically, we will go through and we'll create a park. However, we're going to preserve farmers and ranchers, and they're allowed to
Hmm.
stay. And they're allowed to continue to operate in perpetuity. And that
Yeah.
was the intention. And so they were folded in. There's a great documentary out called Rebels with a Cause. And I can send you the link for that. But that it tells the story of why Point Reyes National Seashore exists and how the farming community is actually part of the reason why it exists and the
Hmm.
intention behind creating it and why that first time ever pastoral zone was created. So from the 1960s all the way through the 70s, the government started to purchase the land under the precedent that the farmers could stay so long as it stayed within their family and they continued to farm or ranch.
Hmm.
Here recently, and this has been going on for about 30 years. In the last 30 years, a lot of NGOs started to find out that if they go and they sue farmers for, under the Clean Water Act or environmental reasons, the farmers, it was cheaper to just settle out. If you've ever been involved in a lawsuit, here it's about
No problem.
250,000, 300,000, $500,000, right? Just
Yeah.
to get to court.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just to get there, and it can be drug out, and that's exactly what these NGOs are doing. They're dragging it out. Doesn't matter if you're right
Yeah.
or wrong. It matters, it matters who's got the most money, and farmers are an easy target in that way. And so when you
Hmm.
say this is kind of a recent thing, it's really not. This has been happening, as far as I know, across the United States. I would imagine globally. I don't have a thumb on what's legally happening globally, but for sure across the United States, a lot of these environmental NGOs are going after farmers for financial reasons or to obtain their land. I could name off the top of my head like 4 or 5 different places in the US that have the same situation happening to them right now,
Yeah.
where people are coming in and they're suing them to bleed them dry, push them out, and then develop the land or do something different with it. It's
Hmm.
pretty sad, especially because globally our food system is under threat, and like it's shrinking, and it's going to be harder for the everybody worldwide to get food if we continue to you know shut down all these farms and good quality
Yeah.
food, more importantly. So
And it's pasture, right? It's all grassland, basically. See, that's the platform we need to work off anyways. Like that, no matter what, no matter if it's using chemicals or not using chemicals, that's the thing we work on is that platform. So like losing that is bad, and losing it is also food security, as you said. It's a matter of national security if you look at it that way, that your country is able to produce its own food.
right.
Um, it sounds like an episode of Yellowstone, you know, like
It kind of is.
because like it's what Montana, isn't it? And there's all this beautiful national park, and then there's John Dutton's farm, which is like I looked it up because I was always wondering how much is it. I know it's fictive, but it's supposed to be like 700,000 acres. Then Jamie gets into power as a governor, or whatever in the legal side, his son, and then it goes up to 1 million acres. So it's a big ass place, and
Yeah.
it's constantly under threat of development. And I even looked at the old series, not 1923, the Harrison Ford one in the
Hmm.
second season. Sorry, this is a spoiler, but they go at the same thing, like as the modern day, where they're also attacking it for trying to get it to be a ski resort and, trash the place to make it a tourist part and make loads of money off it. So it's constantly under threat. And it sounds like your place is constantly under threat as well. And these guys seem to have endless supply of energy and money. And I don't. I'm looking at these NGOs that over here as well. I mean, you guys have had the big debate about what is a Doge, and we've been talking about it here. Maybe not as ruthless of a model, but just to find out what NGOs are actually doing good and what NGOs are bad and wasting money, and very often they're weaponized. So like you can have an NGO that sounds like something good, but is actually doing the exact opposite. Like so, if you hear something about an environmental whatever, it could actually
Mhm.
be doing the exact opposite. Like it's there to destroy the environment or farming. That is farming as close in harmony to nature as you can get. Um, and we really need to be aware of those NGOs because some of them are really malevolent. And yours are all environmental ones, right?
Yeah, most
They claim to be, and they could
exactly.
be as well. They could be, but radicalized, you know? Like
Well, and I
if
think that
you
all NGOs kind of have an element of like virtue or good, and then they use
yeah.
that as their platform to jump. Because if they were just purely going and doing all, nonsense, I think they would very quickly be shut down. And so I think that some of
Yeah.
these organizations are purposefully trying to do, a little bit of good over here so that it can help to justify their existence while they also do these other things. The Western
Hmm.
Watersheds projects, they take a completely different approach. If you go on their website, it actually says like, we want to get rid of cattle farms. We want to get rid of cattle ranches.
Really?
And
Really?
really? Oh, yes. Yep.
Extensive grazing, as in not the intensive stuff, the actual.
All of it. They do not believe that it is good for the environment,
Right.
and they're purposely going after ranches and farms. And
Uh,
to your point of like farms function alongside Mother Nature, I always make the argument, I tell people it is illogical to think that farmers would cause detriment to
mm,
the environment because we survive off of it. We rely on it. If you
mhm.
have poor pasture lands, you're going to have poor beef because the cows grazing on it aren't going to do as well. It's better
Mhm.
to graze cows than to buy hay because hay is more expensive than to just to graze them, right? And
Yeah.
obviously we can get into larger operations that don't graze at all, but I think that's a completely different argument than what our perspective is on the model, right?
Yeah. It's what you'd call a nuanced view of things. Like you can't say all cattle farming is environmentally healthy. And same as chicken, pork, everything, the pasture based is definitely as good as it can get, and it's the place where you can work on it most. Well, like in Ireland, we're trying to take reasonable steps to move away from chemicals, but not outright and not in too much of a forceful way, hopefully. Um,
Right.
and that's the thing. It's like all the years of propaganda with like cowspiracy and all these things saying that 51% of emissions are caused by livestock has unfortunately radicalized people. You can't even, you can't even blame them in the way that if they think the world is ending because of cows, it's like you're playing on their heartstrings, you're using their good intentions for the wrong thing, and they become they become pawns in the game then essentially, and they think they're doing good. They really do, a lot of these, which is brutal. And then there's obviously the NGOs that are just outright bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and
I'm
to,
trying to
to that
figure out
point,
which is your NGOs. Are they like outright bad or are they outright misled?
I think that unfortunately most NGOs here have a lot of very large donors behind it that have different goals and agendas. And so the
Yes.
NGOs become a product of that. So I
Yeah.
would say it really just depends on who's backing it and what they want.
Yeah.
But to your point is of
Sorry.
sorry.
No, keep going. I just.
Oh, okay. Um, so to your point of like people thinking about like, you're thinking climate change and they're thinking that 51% is caused by cows. That derives from the study called Livestock's Long Shadow. And
Mm-hmm.
it was disproven by Dr. Frank Mitliner's team. He's out of UC Davis. And they retracted it. because
Yeah.
he was able to show that this is the way that you measured this was inaccurate. He compared it to transportation and cars. And what his team did is they went back and they tried to recreate the study. And what the organization had done is they did a cradle to grave, like basically from the birth of a calf to the life of the animal to getting that product into store and all of the in-betweens of climate, detriment in order to do that. And that's how much the cows create in carbon, and climate change, right? And then they took a meter and they stuck it on the back of a vehicle and measured the exhaust. And they went and they said, you can't do that. If you're going to do cradle to grave over here, then you need to do cradle to grave over here.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to stick a meter on the back of a car, then you need to stick a meter on the back of a cow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and so they retracted the whole thing, but the public, they see livestock's long shadow that gets blasted. And once that gets out into media, people don't go
Mm.
back and read the retraction. And the retractions rarely
No.
get a lot of publicity, and it never did. And so since then, we have learned that cows are actually part of the climate solution. They can be, and they should be, just
Yeah.
how Mother
100%.
Nature intended, right? Livestock and like large buffalo herds doing,
Fertilizing. Yeah.
right, mob grazing. That's what they, same thing. Like
Mm.
animals function alongside Mother Nature naturally and instinctively. People with
Yeah.
cars and all that, that's a different story. So it's just,
Yeah.
it doesn't bring a lot of common sense to it. And the point raised farms, to that point, they are hugely, you know, carbon sequestering, regenerative farming, some of the most sustainable farms in the United States, some of the smallest farms in the United States, all pasture based, all
Wow.
organic. Like, you want to talk about environmentally friendly and sound entities that are going to be helpful raising quality food source for people. That's these farms. And
Yeah.
we're methodically getting rid of them. It doesn't make any sense.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
Um, and as you said, like that, those studies linger. Like, I have a friend, Natalie Webster, who wrote a book on how emissions on farms are unfairly counted, and she, okay, so this is going to be offensive to anyone who listens, but I'm half German. I was born in Germany. And we talked about an Irish comedian who made the joke about when you speak to Germans, that all you're thinking is Hitler, Hitler, Hitler. Like it's just in your mind, because it's like you just associate it with their past. And I like my dad's German and all, so I find it unfortunate, but I take
Yeah.
the point that it's there. And she made the point that of years of this misinformation and propaganda and malevolent tactics, that we're looking at steak, the regular person goes into a butcher, will still buy that steak maybe, but they'll go climate change, climate change, climate change. It's just in their mind. And that's by design, by two things as far as I can see, is it's a deflection tactic from, say, fossil fuel industry, all the other major polluting industries. They want to have a scapegoat. So the small farmers are the easiest to divide, because they're different enterprises. Um, they're obviously small and separated, and they can push them off the land pretty quickly with their deep pockets, and then say, "Look, we're going to grow trees here. We're going to have rewilding, all sorts of things," which I am not opposed to. The I definitely think there's parts of farms that can be rewilded, and increase biodiversity with regenerative agriculture. All of these things are fine, but they're using it as an excuse to go, look, we've planted so many trees, um, and we're going to just keep doing what we're doing in the background while you think we're good guys up here. And on the other side, there's the commercial side, where they can make loads and loads of money off, like the agrochemical industry, selling chemical inputs. The most money they'll ever make is on monoculture crops. Like like my uncle, and my friends and everyone that have farms, they still use most of them use some chemicals, like a bit of fertilizer, a bit of pesticides for we have rushes that are like the bane of our lives for any farmer because the soil is so wet. So it's like you'll break your heart. I've talked to
Yeah.
people about it, but they use minimal amounts and they might figure a way out to move away from it. Um, but the most money you can make is off monocrop culture. So that's the biggest inputs of GMO seeds, pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, and then you sell it off for the ingredients to lab meat, plant-based meat, and fodder for chickens and pork, which are the most factory farmed animals, and the cows on the lot. So, like, there's a whole huge business angle as well on top, right? That the least amount of money they can make is off someone like you.
Yeah.
So, you
And
know,
the
if you
big
go
thing,
regenerative, you're not buying any of their products or
right.
less.
And I liked what you first said about how we can transition, we should transition farming into, small local organic farms. But I want to be clear, like, I don't think that we should be getting rid of farms, period, because we don't have enough
Yes.
as a stand. And
Yeah.
so even larger farms that we have in America, 95% of farmers are family farms. There's only 5% that aren't. And
Hmm.
so all those sizes that are encompassed in that 95% should be preserved. And we should, in fact, be encouraging more people to learn farming and become farmers so that we can
Yep.
steer away from 3D printed meat made out of bugs and lab manufactured milk that was just approved by the FDA this year. And
Scary, isn't it?
it is. And
Yeah.
I understand that that's a solution to the deficit of food, but people should be afraid of that because that's not going to be fed to the people who can afford good quality, grass-fed organic
Yeah.
meat, right? It's going to be fed to the people who can't afford it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I always believe like we want to be as close to Mother Nature as possible. And also, Mother Nature will correct herself. So we need to quickly change course and get back to functioning within Mother Nature alongside with all of our farming. Farming plays a part in that. And one of the easiest things that I think anybody can kind of take a look at, you can go to the Point Reyes National Seashore website and you can see photos of a lot of the farms from the 1800s. And you can look at
Mm.
pictures today and they don't look different. They look almost identical. I mean, other than they're in color now, right? And I think that's a testament to the conservation of the land and how farmers truly function. I have photos of our farm from 1914, and the photo from the sale of 1904 is exactly the same as today. And I can pick out the same hay building. I can pick out my great grandparents' house. Like it's all still there, and
Oh,
the landscape is the same. We
yeah.
have a couple of new buildings and we've modernized, but otherwise, like the landscape is just as healthy as it was back then. And they didn't have the same type of farming that we do today, but it's a
Mhm.
testament to that we can be, natural and
Yeah.
move alongside Mother Nature and do it in a way that's respectful. And so we want to try and preserve all farmers, but we need more farmers. We don't need less. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
this all keeps going. So, yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
and it's because like farming, I think what people see on the news, the mainstream stuff, is like this really doom and gloomy side of things. And my uncle jokes about he watched the Dark Waters, and there was like a grumpy farmer coming out, get off my land. He's like, why do they always make them like these really grumpy old men?
They are
Like
grumpy.
not they're well, no comment because I know some people might watch this that
Hey, I love my grumpy old men. Okay, let me tell
yeah,
you,
yeah.
they are wonderful people. And I always tell people, think about this. Like, it takes all kinds, right? You don't
Absolutely.
move to somewhere in the middle of nowhere to raise animals and work alongside animals and not have a place where people come in every single day to live in peace and quiet. You don't become
Yeah.
that person and then expect them to be like, hi, how's it going? And
Yeah.
that's again, that's why farmers are such an easy target because they're not marching in the streets and saying, we're being affected by NGOs. Like they just want to
Yeah.
be buried in their hole and leave them alone.
Yeah, yeah, and like the romantic idea of farming is that you can be on your own. You're
Yeah.
like, leave me the fuck alone. I want to be just do my thing, working hard, switched off from the rat race, and now it's just ever encroaching on them on all sides, and like it is a beautiful thing. Like when I'm on the farm with my uncle, I love it. I didn't realize it was missing in my life. I had just done like 12 odd years in offices, um,
Wow.
and then like just helping my uncle randomly, like he just needed a hand tagging calves, and that's kind of how I got back into it. um and I just enjoyed it so much. I was like, wow, this is like, when you're, whatever you call, your soul is at rest, you're just out, and it's lovely and it's beautiful, like,
Yeah.
and being with the animals, and they're treated so well as well. Like when you think of the alternative of them all squashed into horrendous conditions, I would definitely say that like the extensive pasture-based farming is like they have great lives out there, and they don't really have to worry about much either. They're like eating and running around the place and have shelter. And often we'd leave the gate open. They go into the shed.
Oh yeah.
They go in. They love the shed.
Well, it's
Um,
like that's their couch and they want to sit on the couch and relax. They don't want to have to go out in the
yeah,
field and work for it, right? And they're like, I
yeah,
want to
yeah,
go
yeah,
bed down. Yeah.
yeah.
I
We,
remember being a little girl and like sitting alongside the road where I grew up and on the other side of okay, and let's be real, my mom and dad still live there. So it's, on the other side of the ranch.
oh, right.
Right. But I remember sitting on that road as a little girl for me, it seemed like hours and trying to just count the cars going by. And I would rarely even get to one hand, and
Really?
it was just quiet and it was amazing.
Yeah.
I also remember like my dad and my mom working profusely. They still work to this day. I mean, they're in their late 60s, and my mom works harder than any person I know. Like
Mm.
she's out there. She goes out. She lifts heavy things. She'll pick up a 50-pound stack of grain and hauls it around. Like she's out
Fair
there.
play to her.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my dad, he's the same thing. Like it doesn't matter. He works 7 days a week. And I remember being a
Mm.
little girl, and that's the downside of farming, right? Like it's not a clutch, like sitting in 9 to 5 and you're off for the weekends, you got all this time off, right? It's a constant. I remember Christmas morning, one morning we were like, you got to wait to open presents because dad had to go fix a pipe.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is what
yeah.
it is. Like that's the
All the time.
downside,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But otherwise, I always talk to people how I had the luxury. My mom and dad were never away from me. Like I remember,
Hmm.
sure, I went to school and stuff, but otherwise, they were always accessible. I could walk out into the field and always see my dad, always see my mom. And
Yeah.
we grew up helping on the farm and, feeding the calves. And we were very small. Like, okay, you can't carry buckets, but you can wash buckets. So that's what we would do.
Yeah.
And we were just always alongside them. And that's just part of the life. And that's the beauty of farming, that
Yeah.
it's a trade-off, right? It's hard work, but the lifestyle is just incredible. And I
Mm.
hope that more people kind of start to come that way a little bit more, but there's a lot that needs to change.
Yeah, and it's very healthy. Like it's a very healthy job. Andrew Huberman, the guy that like he's always talking about health tips and all this stuff. Get your daylight, your sunlight and movement very early. And I was like, if you were a farmer, you do that automatically. You're out and about, you're getting enough sunshine, you're moving straight away. You might have your coffee after you've fed the animals and all that. And it is great, and you're using all your muscles of all your body. Like farmers are
Yep.
very strong people for a reason. They're using the whole chain of muscles the whole time. Like these guys and ladies have built up huge strength. Um,
I have been
and I,
told a time or two that I have weird farmer strength.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
Whatever
bet. I
that
bet.
means.
I bet you do.
I don't know what it means, but
Picking up a
okay.
bale, like. Yeah,
It's
but
fun.
it's every day is a workout, really. When you're like that, you know?
Yeah, my dad, he fell 27 feet and he shattered his pelvis, fractured his spine, broke his arm, broke his leg. Yeah, it was a
Oh
gruesome
gosh.
accident. He was walking along top of hay bales and fell in between them. Anyhow,
Wow.
6 blood transfusions later, they told him he would never walk again, and that he was lucky to have survived it because, because of just how awful the fall was, right? Um, but later, he actually excelled and was able to walk again, was able to ride his dirt bike again, was able to compete in mountain bike rides, and today is like still like this
Yes.
bionic, crazy athletic man. And the doctors attribute it to how healthy and fit he was, or it
Yeah.
is. And I mean,
Yeah.
he goes out, he works out every day still. He's a
Epic.
beast.
Yeah.
He's a beast. And my mom's
Uh,
right there too. So, I mean, it's just
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And you know, like, I just did what you call the Green Cert in Ireland. It's like an agricultural qualification, so you're officially recognized as a farmer, say. And the health and safety class was hilarious. Like, you know, it did not say anything about how healthy it is, but it showed you all the ripped limbs of standing too close to the PTO shaft if it's uncovered, you know? It just showed, like, no offense to these people, it's a horrendous thing and it's a dangerous thing as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
You got to watch out. Seriously, it is a dangerous job, but there's so many health benefits to it as well. Like that we seem to be not seen or it's not highlighted and going full circle of what we were talking about um people damn it I lost my train of thought people with the grumpy old farmers
Oh,
like
yes.
that's not what I see, like that's not what I see on the ground, and it's not what I see when I look at my Instagram profiles. There's loads of people having a lot of fun, a lot of young energy, and enjoyment and community involvement, you know? Like farmers are very connected with their communities,
Yes.
and it's a lovely, lovely thing. And that seems to be like, you know, all you see is on the protests. Why are they protesting? Probably because they don't believe in climate change and they hate the environment. And then you get this dehumanization of these farmers who are actually being really attacked from all sides. Like you were talking about UK and the inheritance tax, and like there's a whole big play in the background that people don't realize, and it's dehumanizing farmers, and it's like we gotta we gotta keep signaling that message that that's fake. That's by design. That people, when they see farmers protesting, that they think, oh, they're being stubborn. It's like it's not. They're not being stubborn. They're being really shafted. Like
Yeah.
I can't think of any other way to describe it. Yeah.
For a farmer to come off the farm and to start being publicly, yeah, announcing that there's an issue, it's a very serious thing. No
Yeah.
farmer want anybody who steps into farming and is involved in it doesn't want to be the person to lose their great grandparents or great great. And in the UK, I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking 1,000 years, right? They don't want to be that person that loses the farm.
Mm.
It's a heavy weight to bear, and it's crushing. And I think when we start to look at what's happening globally, in the UK with the inheritance tax, like you mentioned, in
Mhm.
Australia, they're having this massive drought and receiving no government assistance, and it's turning into this major dust bowl. Um,
Even though loads of industries get handouts all the
yeah,
time, especially banks and things like that, they all get massive handouts. Um, to not think that you could support a farmer who supplies you with food and does one of the most honorable jobs in the world,
right.
that's shocking. That is shocking.
Yeah, so Australia is going through it. There's a New Jersey farmer, 175 years. His family has been in that place, and the city is trying to take over his farm through eminent domain. We've got point raise
Mm.
happening. We've got Oklahoma, where a farmer was pushed out to save the desert tortoise, which now they're ripping up the ground to put up massive hotels. I mean, the
For
list
the
goes
love of
on.
God.
It just
Yeah.
keeps going. And it's just, we have to shift gears. We have to take care of farmers and recognize
Yeah.
the value that they bring. And when we talk about grumpy old farmers, I'm going to go back to that really quick too.
Yeah.
Because I love grumpy
Go
old
for it.
farmers, right? But it all comes
Me
down
too.
to approach. And one of the other things that farmers truly do preserve is their traditional ways of life.
Mm.
And you see that when you go up to any farmer, they expect a certain, greeting, not necessarily, I shouldn't say like globally, like that's exactly how people are, but I think in general, a lot of farmers do
Pretty
kind of
damn
have,
similar.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they expect, to be polite and kind and
Oh,
respectful. And
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think, and that measure is just a little bit different because they're a little quote unquote old school. And I mean, that's at least my experience with a lot of people.
Yeah. Hanging around those guys, there's kind of a thing about like men don't know how masculine they should be these days. Hanging around these guys is like a breath of fresh air. They're like, you're like, oh, that's where the masculine is. That's where, like, I'm sure there's some things that we can evolve on, but there's a lovely feeling of being around that level of masculinity, in a way. I can't describe it.
On both
It's
sides, I
funny,
absolutely agree.
you know?
There's something about a man that like, that he can go out and he can, pick up a hay bale and he can handle business or
Yeah.
change a tire, fix a tractor or whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And farmers definitely emanate that. And but also at the same time, they can be kind and caring enough with helping a lamb be born, right? And like
Yes.
gentle enough
Yeah.
that they can, you know, help with whatever, and then strong enough
Mm.
to mend a fence. But and the women too, like women farmers are equally bringing their own strengths. My nanny, when her my papa used to farm, back in the 40s and 50s, right? It was traditional that the woman, the wife, would cook meals for everybody working on the farm. And she has a
Mm.
Hoosier cabinet in her kitchen where you could put a 50-pound sack of flour. And this woman would make 3 meals a day for everybody working on the farm, plus 7 children.
Wow.
And she would make everything from scratch. I mean, she made gnocchi, she made, everything. It was just fresh bread, fresh eggs,
Mm.
whatever. And it was like she went through and she did all of that. She was up from dusk till dawn, minding seven children while
Wow.
simultaneously helping all that. And then she would go out and help work with the calves. So the stamina of these farm women
Sure.
and how hard they worked to care for their families and the extended family as well. I mean, it's an amazing culture to be part of.
Yeah.
And it's a valuable thing to have within our communities. And it's yet again, another reason why we want more of this, not less of it. And that, by the way,
Hmm.
translates all the way from all size farms, right? That's a cultural thing, in the
Yeah,
farming
big time.
community. Yeah.
And I think because I love that people are talking about community more. It's so important, and people do feel disconnected from things. If you're like, I mean, myself, prime example of, if you're very ambitious, working long hours, you don't see your friends and your family that much. You're in a city, and you can have community in a city, surely. But when I came back to Ireland, it was Germany where I was living, and this sense of community was just totally preserved in the area, and like a gift culture as well. People would just randomly land into the house, my mother's house or my uncle's, and they'd drop a bag of meat or tomatoes or honey or whatever was been grown on their land. And it's lovely. Like it was just, and people just, we have this tradition in Ireland which it still exists in a lot of places where you go in the back door, you don't knock on the front door because
Yep.
people are at work. People are at work. So you don't want to, you go in the back door because if they're in the kitchen, they're cooking. You don't want to disturb their busy day of work, so you just go in, say how are you, have a cup of tea, but let them keep doing what they're doing if it's important. You don't get them to go to the front door, but that like it's lovely. That's kind of a an always welcome feeling. You don't have
Yep.
to call or whatever. Um, like I think the world needs more of that. Like we're disconnected in so many ways, and then when you see a thriving community, it's the loveliest thing, and it's warm, and like you're part of something, and you also feel safer. Like people have got your back, you've got their back. I was just telling the last lady I interviewed that my uncle and I cut down these trees. We had a really bad storm in Ireland. The worst I would probably say in, can I say history? Well, definitely in my lifetime and my family's lifetime, and loads of trees got knocked down, loads.
Wow.
And there's like two or three trees leaning over my mother. Sorry, I have a book here. I actually wanted to read something out there.
Okay.
That's why I got up out of off the chair. But the house is here, and this is how the trees were over the house,
Oh
big
my
massive
God.
trees, and
Wow.
um and my uncle had the tractor and the chainsaws, and we cut the trees down. But it was lovely that like everyone in the community is just kind of helping each other, and looking out for it. She didn't ask, but or it was my uncle that had kind of organized it and thought of it. Like we have to cut those trees down soon before
Yeah.
the next storm. But like this lovely community thing, um, you can never really fall too far if you've got those connections. And everyone's like, we need the diversity of it as well, where everyone has their strengths, So whoever's good at making bread and repairing things, or the heavy manual labor, it's amazing how if that all threads together, and then taking care of people in when they get older like that, that's all there. And I don't see it in like the big cities as much, say. I'd hope that they have a nice community around them, but it's a beautiful thing coming out to the countryside and seeing how close everyone is. Like it's lovely. It's not something we should kind of ignore, or um I don't if you don't have it, or sorry, if you have it, you mightn't even realize that you have it. You growing up there, if you've never moved away from home, you mightn't realize how amazing that community feeling is. It's like me with studying in Galway, where I was telling you about the nightlife. Like it's amazing here, but I was looking at, the flashy stuff you'd see on TV of like studying in with the fraternities in America, and the good weather, and it looked like such fun. But
Yeah.
then when I moved away from Galway, I realized no, we have amazing nightlife. It does rain a lot, but like the pints and the fun and the live music and everything totally unique here. But I didn't realize it until I left to come back to it. So,
Well, and I
yeah.
think that especially, and I'll bet you it's probably the same in Galway, like even those around you who are not in the farming industry, but maybe function alongside of it, it's
Yeah,
still like this broadened community.
yeah,
And that is why I think, just to bring it back to Point Reyes, like that's why I think Point Reyes is getting so much traction because it was this very quiet thing that's been happening over the last decade because the
mhm,
farmers were forced to be quiet. Um, and through that, once they signed the settlement and it came out and it was announced on January 9th, the community, our community, found out about it and everyone was outraged. They were like, what
mm,
do you mean you're going to be getting rid of all of these farms that we all
I get it.
travel out to see and is part of
Yeah,
our culture and our heritage here? And I think that like to that point, like our community was just so beyond upset. And it's extended nationally now where people are recognizing within their own communities that farms are under attack and to
yeah,
lose those little bits and pieces the broadened community is recognizing, like, wait a second, like we need them. And that's
Yes.
important to people.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people see that value, which is a good thing.
It's
Yeah.
everybody's problem. It's
Yeah.
everybody's problem. And you know, there's good documentaries are really powerful for this stuff. The Food Inc. 1 and 2 and Farmageddon all document this stuff really well. Just like you might some people might feel desensitized towards seeing small farmers struggle, but it's what replaces them that's the worst thing. Like way, way, way worse. So, like, whatever you think about small farmers, which I would put my hand up and think they're great, but just even to fear the big stuff that's coming down the line, that all the chemicals that are making us infertile, giving us cancers, destroying the soil, you treat the soil poorly, it releases emissions, you treat it well, it sequesters carbon. Um,
Or you pave it
that's
over and put up solar farms. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
that's a whole other, yeah.
that's a
I'm
whole
sorry.
other. No, 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 no. I've
Poop.
trust me. I think about this a lot
I
because
know.
I see the good side of solar and renewables, and I see the tricky side of them because big industry is big industry, no matter what. It's operating in a we're operating in this capitalism model and it's like constant growth, constant everything. So it really is gonna, no matter what type of big business it is, it's gonna be pretty ruthless.
Yep.
So they're gonna try to unravel legislation just as much as the others are doing it. And you
Yep.
gotta keep them all in check and you gotta make sure that they don't take up too much land or destroy the whatever we have offshore wind farms here and people are speaking up about them and I'm about to do an interview soon with a woman that looks into this stuff really deeply and she's going on like what's happening around the world. She's from Holland but she's looking at the health aspects, the like w- the the recycling of them because like it's the same money often going into the renewables that's going into the fossil fuels and they if they can get away with not recycling they will if they can get away with not creating a product that's that environmentally friendly they will and we can't leave it to them to just determine that they're the good guys and that they'll always do if you're seeing it that black and white, that's tricky because
Yeah.
it's not black and white.
No, and
Um,
at the same time, I think, and I'm biased, of course, but I feel like the more we
yeah,
can keep Mother Nature as natural as possible, then the better
yeah,
off the rest of the world will be. And so when you start talking about paving over acres and acres of land, there's got to be a different way. Like you
there
put
is
solar, yeah, there,
exactly. There
yeah,
is, God damn it. And there you see it. You're nailing it though. It's like, does it have to be there? And if it's gonna be there, there's models where you have sheep underneath and growth, but that's not happening. It's all on the ground, and it's not that way. So they're taking the easiest, cheapest, most efficient option,
Well,
for
that's what it is. People
maximizing
are
growth.
short. They have a shorter vision. They don't have the longevity to think, or they don't care. It's either they don't want to because they want the immediate income because money is power and
Hmm.
people get money hungry versus
Yeah.
thinking of the longevity of what's going on. And I'm again bringing it back to farmers. Like when we're planning anything, my dad, he always says, he's like, one generation builds this, then they pay it
Hmm.
off during their life, but it's for the next generation. The next generation builds this, then they pay it off for their life. Like
Totally.
everything done generationally because you're setting it up for the next
Yeah.
person that's going to
Yeah.
be on the farm. You can't go build a dairy farm in Northern California today. That'd be $10 million. So we
Yes.
work with our
Yeah.
same thing in Ireland, I'm sure. Like
Oh
you're
yeah,
not
big
going to
time.
go build a brand new dairy farm. That's not an
Hmm.
investment people are going to make because it pays off over the course of generations. And
Mm.
that's the same thing with modernizing farms today too. Like it's something that pays off over generations. And
Yeah.
so bringing it back to the solar companies or any of those larger companies, they're not looking at it for their children to inherit and work towards and take care of. They're looking at it for like, oh, let's get a 5 to 10 year profit plan going, and then who cares what
Mm.
happens? And
Yeah.
that's
And
one of the worst things for the world, for the populations. Like
yeah,
we need longevity. So
long-term thinking,
yeah,
generational thinking. Like sorry, but the Chinese, they're doing that. They're doing exactly that. They have like 3 decade plans and they
yeah,
see them through.
yes,
And we're like, well, if we vote this party in, they're going to do it this way, then the other ones are going to do it that way and unravel what they were doing, and then like we are really weak in that way that we
yes,
just can't find something to we can't even find the common ground to like go, okay, this is a long-term plan for this. Do we all agree? Okay, let's leave this alone forever, this plan. But like it's constant. You see it. I'm sure you see
yeah.
it in
Oh,
the
absolutely.
States. Like,
It's funny that you brought that up because I saw something, a news clip or something like that from China. Oh, sorry. And excuse me. Just kidding. But I saw a news clip from China and they were saying, hey, America's been there for hundreds of years. We've been here for thousands. Let them do what they're going to do. We'll, basically to their point was like, we know how
we'll
to
be
do
fine.
it. We're fine.
Yeah.
Like we've stood the course of time. They're
Uh,
barely figuring it out. And I
yeah.
was like,
God.
whoa, that's pretty powerful.
That's that's kind of eye-opening. Oh my
Right.
God. And it's true like that. Yeah. We 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 do need to like my I'm trying to write a book and it's about global sustainability issues like chemicals, agriculture, antibiotics, waste, just resource management, um, energy,
Yeah.
and like you just it's all about finding like kind of common ground on what we can agree on, like keeping our water clean, our food healthy, our air clean, security, food security, all of
Yeah.
these things, and finding where we can at least agree on stuff because we're so divided at the moment. It's mad. Like it's like if you try to step back and just I don't know. It's really like I'd like to focus just on what we can agree on at least. The 80-90% most people can agree on, is where I would like to focus my attention
Yeah.
instead of getting caught up in a spiral of anger and all that. I mean, I do care deeply about certain issues, but
Yeah. I think
um,
we all do, but I think globally, I think people are a lot closer in agreement on where we need to be than what we all kind of think. I think people get clouded
yeah,
by their judgments of bringing in, filters essentially of like, oh, this is this political party, this is this political party. Clean water,
mm,
clean food,
yeah,
and shelter. Those are not political discussions. Sure,
no,
the politics play into how we go about those things, but
hmm,
if you show me anybody on any side of any political party, everyone's going to agree that they want good quality food or that they
yeah,
want good clean water. It's
yeah,
just a matter of how they think the best thing to get there is. And then the clouded judgment happens with the people in power positions where they start to
hijacking
have
them.
short-term thinking and then they
Yeah,
start to go, how much money can we make to get there?
yeah,
Versus what's the long-term goal? What is the best thing for everyone? And I
yeah.
think that's where it comes down to. But I do think that people agree on the basics, like what you said.
Yeah, that's it. And making sure that we stay on that and like the a lot of stuff is hijacked as well now. Like, like climate policy sounds good on paper, probably the idea of like good climate policy, but
Yeah,
it's hijacked. Like a load of stuff. The biofuels that are coming from Africa where they say, hey, it's 30% less emissions if you put this in with your diesel. And they're growing stuff in Africa with loads of chemicals destroying their water, displacing the people off the lands, um, destroying the soil, releasing emissions, and we're bringing it over to Europe and probably America as well, and saying, "Hey, it reduces emissions by 30%. This is brilliant." All the while, it's doing all this mad stuff on the other side of the world, and people are going along with it because of like harsh climate policy, climate targets that they have to meet. Do you call them county councils over in? Do you have a council, county council?
Yep.
Well,
City
like
council.
city council,
Yeah,
county
city
council.
county council. Yep, exactly.
You're
Exactly.
making me think of Parks and Rec. I love it. I love it.
Well, you know.
Um, but they're all full of this fuel now, and it costs extra. It costs more than diesel. Um, but they're like, hey, it's great, it's meeting our targets, even though so the taxpayer is paying more money for this stuff to be used, and it's screwing over a whole country or a whole continent, and leading to deforestation and everything. Um, and it's like one of a million things, like Bover, I'm sure you've heard of. You know
Okay.
the ooh, that's
Yes,
if you
that
keep having climate policy like the walls closing in, um it and farmers, to empathize with them, if they're worried about making ends meet, protecting their livelihoods, they're gonna take the 30% promise, so that they can stock up, and it's all a money game. Like, so that's climate policy at its finest, in the wrong way. You
yeah,
know, it's not, there's no headlines going, so Amazon or whatever have decided to stop using these harmful chemicals or decided to stop doing this. It's like, no, they've bought big swaths of land, and they're planning to look good, without actually doing any change to their operations whatsoever.
right.
And you poor farmers are getting the blame and the brunt of it, which is really unfortunate.
Well, it's so weird. And I'd like, for me, I bring it back to, we can look at all the science and read through all the articles and what have you, right? But
Hmm.
like, if you just use a little common sense and you drive out to where these farms are and you look at the sky, like it just looks crisp and clean air, like regardless of,
Yeah.
what's going on there, as long as it's, out there in agriculture, in the farmland and pasture land, like it's nice, good, clean air. And then you drive into like a metropolitan city and look up, it's
Yeah.
like, this is not quality air.
No.
And something that was pointed out to me, and I noticed it during the time, but it didn't go bing until somebody said something. And they're like, did you notice during COVID how like all the air around us just was cleaner?
Mm.
Because
Hmm.
everyone stopped driving to work. Everyone was kind of like hunkered down their house. And I'm not saying I want to go back to that. That was not good for a lot of people. On the farm, it was great.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, the people I know loved it.
We were fine.
Loved it. Yeah.
um, but for a lot of people who were not commuting and whatnot, all like I think the air never looked better. There was so much
Yeah.
less smog. Like it was just, and it's a testament to, hey, the problem isn't farmers. We were still going. We were,
Hmm.
we had to. You can't stop feeding your animals, right? Everyone
Yeah.
was still working. Everyone was still functioning, and the rest of the world halted, and that's what helped our air. Like, let's have a little bit of
Yeah. Not
forethought.
bad.
I don't know.
That's a
Sorry.
good point. That's a very good point. And remember, I got up out of the chair
Yes.
to legitimize what we were talking about earlier about the emissions of cows. Um, this this is Michael Mann's book. Um, he's like one of the most prominent climate scientists out there, and he like this is called the New Climate War, but it's really smartly done. It explains all the sides and all the extra fear that's been pushed on us and everything. And the guy obviously believes in climate change, but he wants to like target the right things. Um, and I just wanted to read this out. Meat is, if you don't mind, meat is central to the food fight, especially the meat that so many seem to have a beef with, beef. Though beef consumption is responsible for only 6% of total carbon emissions, it often seems to fill close to 100% of my Twitter feed. The meat Malay was fed by a highly successful and influential 2014 documentary, Cowspiracy, which promoted the false notion that meat eating is the primary contributor to how human caused climate change. Cowspiracy diverted, you might say, deflected attention from the real conspiracy on the part of fossil fuel industries to confuse the public about the role of fossil fuel burning. Billed as the film that environmental organizations don't want you to see, Cowspiracy maintained that the livestock industry has conspired with leading environmental organizations to hide the fact that meat consumption, not the burning of fossil fuels, is responsible for the lion's share of warming. Sorry, I just needed to say it. But that thesis isn't the product of incisive research and investigative journalism. It's a product of dubious, non-peer-reviewed claims built on bad math, amplified by a polemic film. As a result, there is now a seemingly limitless and very animated community of vegan activists who are convinced that meat shaming is the solution to climate change. Yeah, I mean, I could go on, but it's like here, even, sorry, I noted it here. I am wary of individuals who seem to be trying to hijack the climate discourse for the cause of worldwide veganism
Yeah,
and plant-based. That's like
absolutely.
it's there's an issue behind this that I hope people are really starting to see, and it's
Well, and
business deflection.
And I'll add to that. And I have no problem if someone wants to have a plant-based diet, like go for it.
Mm,
That's prerogative. Like that's what you want to do, and that's what brings health and joy to your life. Go for it, right?
yeah.
But it is not a solution for the world simply because of two different factors. The first, I'm going to bring it back to Dr. Frank Mitliner. He gives a presentation on arable versus non-arable land and how much arable land that we have to grow specialty crops is very, very small. Most of the world is made up of non-arable land, and a good chunk of that is what we would consider like the Great Plains. You
Hmm.
can't plant tomatoes and strawberries there and so on, but you can year round graze animals. And so therefore that land becomes capable to feed populations because of meat and dairy and eggs and so on, right?
Yeah.
The other part of it is, and this has happened historically, you can plant acres, hundreds of acres of crops, and you can have bad weather or pests like locusts come in and destroy all of the crops in one fell swoop. You can't plant that crop again until the next year.
Yep.
Populations could starve immediately, if you're
Yeah.
not canning and dehydrating and whatnot. It takes a great deal of effort to be able to feed populations with specialty crops. But you know what happens when land gets frozen over and whatnot in the snow? Well, the cows and the buffalo, they learn how to dig through the snow and they continue to
They
eat grass,
do.
and you can still
They
eat
do.
those in the winter. you
Yeah.
know? And so
It's
that
more
those are my
resilient.
right? It's
Yeah.
just
Damn right.
it's natural. It's how life works. Like, that's how Mother
Yeah.
Nature functions. Yeah,
Yeah.
crops. Yeah. If you look at
Uh,
carrots and how we've bred carrots, right, and how big they are now, if you were to
mhm.
find wild carrots, they are a third of the size and they grow sporadically.
And ugly, but beautiful,
And
but ugly.
beautifully
You know what I
ugly,
mean? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
beautifully imperfect.
Um, like Berlin. Have you ever been to Berlin? It's nuts, but they always say ugly is the new beautiful, because
Love it.
they're yeah, and, like it's a very different place. You'd have to see it to believe that it's an actual place. Like it's mad, but
Cool.
it's really like I don't know. Going back to that, it's we're kind of trained to look at fruit and veg and everything and like like the appeal that just got approved, the Bill Gates, the coating that can go on organic food that has
Yeah.
chemicals in it that they're not disclosing, and we're trained to think that these shiny big apples or whatever are the perfect ones that we should eat, and it's probably more the healthier is the weird looking carrots that
Yeah.
covered in dirt from the farmer's market. Um, Yeah, it's yeah, it's
Crazy.
and you know what I often thought like, why is there no vegan organic stuff out there? Have you ever thought of that? You ever wondered?
I don't know. I don't frequent the
Yeah.
vegan section.
Yeah. No, no, no. But like
Really?
what is it? Game Changers? Is Game Changers the thing? I think where it was like a big push for athletes to go vegan and showing that, they boosted their muscle growth by so much and their testosterone and X, Y, and Z. And they showed these elite athletes eating vegan food. Then they go organic chicken, organic beef. Um, and they'd keep doing this. And I was like, why don't they promote organic vegan stuff? Are they that sneaky? Are they like, is the big industry going, just eat vegan no matter what it is? Like, is that it? No, but they can't. There's no large scale vegan food because they need fertilizer. They need a chemical fertilizer. Otherwise, if you see vegan organic, or say oat milk that's organic, that's
Hmm.
going to use animal manure. Like that's
Yeah.
the only way. So like the only way that system works without chemicals to be vegan without chemicals is you need the manure from animals and
So I've
otherwise
heard
synthetic
they have
fertilizers.
apparently they have veganic farming, and I had a follower call
Yeah.
out. Yes. But I looked into it a little bit, and they use things like soy and whatnot. And I don't know how successful that type of farming is or how healthful. And again, I just like to mirror Mother Nature, right? Mother Nature didn't have loads of soy organically, excuse me, organically like fertilizing lands. You know what it did have was
Hmm.
massive herds of buffalo or deer tromping through the plains or the forest, with their
Yeah.
excrement on the ground. That is fertilizer. That's how Mother Nature intended it. And so
Hmm.
I feel like anytime you try and, fickle with the system, it's just not going to be how our bodies or our life was designed. And
Yeah.
I don't know, have you ever looked into that veganic farming before?
No, I've heard the term, and I'm pretty sure. See, this is where I go, not to you. You obviously don't believe it, but don't believe the hype because that's not all vegan food. And even if it's 1% or 2%, it's not all vegan food. So all the other ones are going to be ultra processed and using high amounts of chemicals that destroy ecosystems and ultimately all life. Like it is like you can use small amounts of it in reasonable chunks. I have friends that work on invasive species projects, and they have to inject glyphosate Roundup into the stems. It's the only thing that will get rid of invasive species. So there's a time and a place for these chemicals, um, just not reckless use. And the big vegan industry push to save the world from climate change, and not just vegan, plant-based, right? Because they're saying eat less meat, eat less red meat, and then eat pork and chicken, basically, because they're the only two, the only three real options we mostly gravitate towards are beef, pork, and chicken, unless I'm missing something in some
Lamb.
country. La yeah, lamb, but lamb is with beef on the
Oh,
grass, So they say there's so much land. Look at these cows and these sheep. They're taking up so much space. We need that to rewild because that's how we do it. But at the same time, they're destroying ecosystems with all the chemicals. And what they're really pushing people towards then is the number one factory farmed meats are then chicken and pork. So like this whole we're saving the world or because of animal welfare. If people really subscribe to the idea of plant-based way forward and veganism, I'm not saying the vegans are purposely doing this, but it's like it's a thing that if you keep pushing people towards away from red meat and towards the main factory farmed meats, it's increasing poor animal welfare stuff and extra chemicals. And like I, it's it is that way, like, and
Well, I feel like people, if they ate more healthful, if you eat closer to natural meats, I think that people would eat less. I think that anytime you eat highly
yeah,
processed foods, actually, speaking of Dr. Huberman, Andrew Huberman has a podcast where he talks about how things are satiated when you eat them, and your body has its ability to recognize the nutritional value. So, like if you eat something that's has fillers in it or isn't nutritionally valued. So let's take a lot of nut milks or nut beverages. I'm sorry, I'm not going to use the term milk. Sorry, bias.
not milk.
Um, right? Not milk. You can't milk an
Yeah,
almond.
yeah,
um, but if you take some of these nut beverages and you look at the ingredients, you've got tons and tons of fillers in there. You've got like you know
yeah.
like gelatin and stuff like that, right? To help create this juice.
Hmm.
And your body, when you drink that or you eat these types of products that have fillers, it recognizes that, great, I'm hungry, I want to eat this cheeseburger from Burger King or whatever. But then all of a sudden, your body goes, this doesn't have enough protein, this doesn't have enough calcium, I need X, Y, and Z things. And it
Mm,
recognizes the deficits within it. So then you become more hungry and you eat more. Whereas if
yeah.
everyone were to eat natural, good quality foods, you eat a good quality
Mm,
steak, you probably would be fine for most of the day and you would stop eating if you were eating off of
hmm.
hunger cues, right? But
Yeah,
that's where like the push for plant-based foods is also detrimental to, humans because it doesn't have the nutritional value or they're synthetic nutrients. And so maybe your body's
yeah,
not able to register them or use them as readily available as what, eating natural raw broccoli or a steak would
yeah.
be. So it kind of it's
100%.
right? It's a double-edged sword. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, listen to Dr. Huberman's podcast for that one.
I would, which one? My God, there's too many.
I
And I was thinking of it like, if you did, like, I know it's, God bless him, it's not his fault, but like, if you followed all the advice he gave people, no regular person can keep up with that. You have to be like extremely determined, single, no children, have a job where it's not overly consuming that, and you have to have pretty good money to do it all. And wow, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I listen to there. I'm like, great, yeah, now I found out that I'm doing that wrong and that wrong and that wrong. But I do subject myself to it because it is good
yeah.
because I know he's well intentioned. And
Well, I feel
I
like if
do
you
think
pick a
he's,
piece out, like you pick like the one little
yeah,
bit out that like, okay, this like in the morning, like getting some sunlight and like,
yes,
letting sunlight hit your eyes. That's free for everybody, right? And so,
j-
and other little parts of like, yeah, there you go, it's your tea. And then,
yeah,
water consumption. And he had another one on weightlifting and how to like get past your
yeah,
max, like all those things, like all those little bits you can apply to your life. And,
yes,
we digress.
yeah. Well, I don't mind digressing on that. He said something about like wait about 40 minutes to an hour to drink your first cup of coffee. And then he
Um,
goes, and there's some people that even if you tell them the health benefits of that, they won't do it. That's me. Like I want the coffee right away, and I don't care if it's gonna be like whatever b- d- there's some levels of something that go up or down.
I,
and and I can't think of the name right now, but I know it's better for me, but I still value my cup of coffee right away in the morning. And then I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not doing everything perfectly like that.
I love it.
um
I
I
love
was
coffee. I would drink a bucket of it a day if I could, but I am so naturally high energy. I
okay,
cannot drink
okay.
it.
Not even one. Not even one.
No, if I drink
Wow,
one,
good for you.
like we will be talking a lot faster.
Buzzing. Going to a rave on a Saturday night.
Exactly.
Yeah, God, can't even imagine how many Red Bulls I used to drink on a night out when I was
Oh
younger. Like
gosh.
you'd drink like, I don't know, seven, eight vodka Red Bulls.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how bad that is for you?
No,
Um,
no.
but
I tried one Red Bull one time and I felt like my heart was gonna like jump out of my chest. I just couldn't do it anymore.
yeah, you should try eight of them. As a 20-year-old, you're probably okay then. Um,
Could
going
give it
going back
a
to going back to the thing, sorry for a sec,
yeah.
the veganism, and sorry to go back serious, but I was vegetarian for 20 years.
Wow.
So so like me, I would hope when I say something about this stuff, it's taken with like seriousness. Like I'm not trying to bash veganism. I'm not trying to bash vegetarianism. I think you can survive perfectly healthily on a vegetarian diet if you eat
Absolutely.
eggs and dairy. Um, but I just, it's not like, going back to like, I don't want to, like, I know people are well intentioned. I know that it's a lot about animal cruelty and all this stuff. Like, I don't want to knock anyone's thing on that. Like, I get it. And like, if you're a regenerative farmer or an organic farmer or a pasture-based farmer who cares about the environment, you actually have a lot more in common with a vegan mindset or a vegetarian mindset of taking care of animals and giving them a good life. It just, unfortunately, one involves killing and eating, but I think there's a lot more common ground there that
I
if we
agree.
played on that and not on the division of everything, and thinking the world is going to end if we don't stop eating beef, that's a big issue. Like that's
Yeah.
something. Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, I'm in Northern California and we have a variety of people and people with lots of different diet. I mean, you could walk into Starbucks and get any kind of dietary restriction you want, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
that's the epitome of California, right? That's some of the laughable jokes that people procure. I think
Yeah.
anybody can be healthful and successful in any kind of diet that they are, utilizing in such a way that works for their bodies. And there are
Yes.
lots of different body types out there. There are people who do really well on plant-based diets and they
Yeah.
follow certain things. I'm specifically nodding at more of the processed plant-based things,
Yeah. Yeah.
but more importantly, I think that you hit the nail on the head. And I'll draw it back to everyone, I think, we are a lot closer to agreeing on what quality life means than what we all think. I just think that people get clouded judgment. And for it to
Hmm.
speak to those who, I don't want to eat meat because of animal cruelty, that's fine. You do you, be the change in the world you wish to see, right? Um, I
Yeah.
believe different things, and that's okay. Also, I don't think that you want me to force, and I'm not saying you in particular, right? I'm talking about people in general.
Yes.
I don't think anyone wants someone else to force their beliefs onto someone else. And
Yeah.
as long as we can move forward in that respectful manner, I think that we would all agree on the basics.
Perfect. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Like no one's, we wouldn't want to go around forcing people to eat steak that don't want to eat steak.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like live and let live. It's probably the same as whatever you want to do with your life. If you want to do whatever and dress how you want and be how you want and express yourself, that's up to you. As long as you're not stepping on other people's toes and being cruel, you should be. That's like freedom, baby. America is
Yeah.
totally that, right? Like that's how it should be. And if you want to experiment with these diets, do. It's just about highlighting certain things. Be careful of certain things. Don't feed into the narrative of big industry that wants you to believe certain stuff. Try and avoid chemicals and processed stuff as much as you possibly can. And don't rely too heavily on supplements to supplement what you might be missing from your diet. Try as hard as you can to get most of your nutrition from good whole foods, natural stuff with minimal amounts of ingredients. Yeah.
Love it. I
Stephanie,
think we
will we?
solved the world.
Huh?
I said, I think we solved the world today.
I think we did. I think we did. We just have to explain it to other people without them pouncing on us. If you clipped like 10 sentences of this, we would sound really, or I would sound really aggressive and
We we didn't mean it that way.
no, no, absolutely not. Stephanie, going back to your very important cause, what can people do to help you? Um, if they can people do anything? Um,
Yeah. Thank you.
yeah,
Just a quick little update on that. So we are hoping RFK has stepped in to help with the point raise
no
situation.
way.
And he is, yeah, so he is aware of what's going on. Brooke Rollins is aware of what's going on. And so
Yeah,
we are hoping for something to come through. It's not guaranteed, but we're hoping that it comes through,
yeah,
obviously, in a timely manner. Part of the difficulty with that is getting true and accurate information to the representatives. And so if
yeah,
someone wants help putting their words on paper in an email, like on a voicemail or something, and alerting the White House as much as possible or their local
okay,
representatives that can help pass on the message. That's the most important thing at this point. Um,
yeah,
just to help continue to spread that narrative that these farmers did want to stay. They do want to stay. They wanted the opportunity. And there is a particular discussion where there was an article released where some of the farmers said that they want the settlement agreement to go through and they want to move on.
hmm,
And my response to that, and just to acknowledge that, is that's because they were given two poor choices. And the better choice was that they don't have an option to stay. They don't have an option to continue.
yeah,
And so that's why that makes sense. But if given the option and the capability, I'm going to go throw that in there because at this point it's cost them beyond,
yeah,
millions of, what tons of
of
dollars
course.
amount to continue on. But it's so important to all of us as a community to keep these farmers because last year we lost 14,000 farmers. In,
Mm.
in the time period that this has gone on, we're losing a third of farmers and ranchers in Marin County just from this one point raised swoop. And so it's detrimental. It's
Yikes.
going to be really detrimental.
Yeah. I mean the what to say? Um, it's exciting at least that RFK and whatever that team is trying to do something. Like this is one thing that I I know he's a polarizing character for
Yeah.
people. There's a lot of good stories and bad stories out there. I read his book Crimes Against Nature a long time ago, and he's a very credible environmental lawyer, and he really understands agriculture. I'll only speak to that part, like narrowly. He's on point, like, and the fact that he's stepping up to try and help you guys with this just shows that he's really on point with this. Like he gets it, and he
Yeah.
gets that's an environmental lawyer. Like that's not just any random. That's a guy that's passionate about the environment, is trying to save you guys. So that's a really important thing. And what I also find funny is that JFK wrote the that introduced the bill, right? And then
Right.
his nephew
Yep.
Bobby Kennedy is like coming along. I've always been a fan of the Kennedy family.
Yeah, I think
Um,
yeah, that's a
epic.
definite like a fairy tale, but it's a really unique situation. But again, like it's not a political discussion or
Yeah,
argument. It doesn't matter if you like RFK or not. Like the fact of the matter is he's in a position of a capable position that can make a difference. And
yeah.
we need him, we need his help. And he is helping. And so that is a good thing. And
Yeah.
that's amazing. And that a relationship was curated by a friend of mine, Kada, and he was able to get RFK involved. And yeah, so it's
That's so
amazing.
exciting.
I know. Very
That's
cool.
so wow. But that shows how important this whole thing is, Stephanie. Like it's huge. And how often do you hear about a political leader coming down like that? You know,
Yeah.
of what I'm sure is a very busy time for him. I really wish you all the best with that. Um, and maybe we can do this again, and you can update us on um, how it's all going. But it's great. I mean, if you have the state like actually shining a light on this, like that could really like put that put something in place to stop this happening on an ongoing thing like that. Enough is enough that it doesn't happen again in like a decade's time, you know? Like you
Uh,
don't want to live under constant threat of this either. You want this to be knocked on its head,
well, and that's the tip of the
finally.
iceberg. Yeah. And that, I think I was talking to one of the farmers out in Point Reyes, and she was saying, she's like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. At the very least, like this subject needs to get
Mm.
out there to let people know, like, this is happening regularly. Like, let them be the unfortunate martyr, if you will. And some of them are going to be, right? That NGOs are coming after farmers. And if
Hmm.
we don't resolve this, if JFK doesn't get out in time or Brooke Rollins doesn't get out in time to help this situation, and we lose these farmers because they're not acting fast enough, which I understand they've got a lot on their plate. But if
Hmm.
we don't do it quickly, then we will lose
Yeah,
them. And then it will set precedent for future NGOs to go after other farmers
exactly.
because the fact of the matter is
Stephanie,
it's, oh,
sorry, the internet just broke off there.
oh,
I just heard the last part, the something about martyrs, I think you said was the
oh,
last word. Um,
yeah.
could you repeat that last part? Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, so I was talking to one of the farmers out in Point Reyes, and they were saying how we should use them at the very least as martyrs because even
Yeah.
if they aren't kept around and JFK and Brooke Rollins don't get out to save them in time, at the very least, we need to publicly let everybody know that this is happening that when these NGOs go out and if this precedence is set that this is a possibility for them, that we can
Hmm.
hopefully stop it before it starts in the next rounds.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Big time. Well, hey, amazing that you've done all the work you've done to like highlight this. It's like um for anyone listening to this, it's Dairy Girl Diaries on Instagram, and you're on Twitter as well, are you?
all the
Um,
platforms, Twitter,
all the
Facebook,
platform.
TikTok,
Really?
X. Yeah, right.
Wow.
Oh, Twitter and X are the same thing.
Nice.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Twitter and
going.
X? No way.
I'm old
Cool.
school.
I only have X. No, well done. Seriously, you've like they're really thoughtful updates and keep people informed. So like hats off to you for raising the alarm bells on this. This is real activism, by the way. This is what, don't think about just people gluing themselves to buildings. This is real activism. Like this is you know, someone stepping up in a community and organizing and really pushing back. And there are many, many success stories out there of people stepping up against what seems like too mighty of a villain or an oppressor, and they do tackle them, and people do rally together. So I really do hope you get as many people continually on your side, and that this gets seen across the world because it's an across the world issue. And once small farmers are gone, they're gone. And it takes decades for that to maybe change again. So we need to protect you guys. Keep doing the good work you're doing. Um, it's honorable work. It really is. Well done.
And same to you. I mean, you are officially one of the sergeants in the fight, so you're bringing it to
It's
you,
not my fight.
whether you
It's not
like it
my
or not.
fight.
If you like food, it is your fight.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Right?
exactly, exactly.
But it is like, and I appreciate you reaching out and helping to get the word out there because that's how we're going to be successful in saving more farmers. And I appreciate that about you.
Thanks a million, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Take care, and hopefully we'll have a catch up at some point. And if it's not about some random NGOs, hopefully it's about your new farming enterprise ideas and all that stuff.
Fingers
Something
crossed.
like that. Yeah.
All right.
All
Thank you.
right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this conversation. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please hit the follow button, and so you'll see more of my content in the future. It would really mean a lot to me because I'm just starting out.